Hey, what's going on, folks? This is, yeah, that's terrible. We are the Literate Nerds. I am Patrick James Kennedy, Patrick J. Kennedy, PK. And I'm going to do a little rant. Excuse me one moment. I just needed to clear my throat. I'm going to do a little rant about Art Spiegeman, the creator of Mouse, which is arguably one of the most important graphic novels of all time. It's certainly a very important piece of work for any number of reasons. However, Art's a notorious asshole. All right, I can assure you that Art is a jerk from knowledge that I have from people who I'm friendly with in the comic book industry, who he has said and done awful things in front of, and is notorious for. One person I know, Larry Hama, who's the creator of the G.I. Joe comic book, of course, and was an editor at Marvel and a penciler at Marvel for many years, and was an assistant to Wallace Wood, and worked for Neil Adams at Continuity, and was in The Warriors, was in an episode of MASH. Larry is a true Renaissance man and a really brilliant artist, and has shepherded some of the greatest creators in the business. Larry got Bob Camp, Vince Waller, and Bill Ray their first gigs at Marvel Comics. So, you like SpongeBob? Well, thank Larry Hama, because Larry, taught the guys who ended up helping create SpongeBob and helped create the Ren and Stimpy show and so many other incredible, brilliant works of animation and comic books. I mean, a lot of people don't know about Bob's resume in comic books. He was, a penciler and inker on Savage Sword of Conan, and he was inking John Buscema's pencils, and I forget the number he said. So John Buscema did something like 70 pages of pencils a month. It's absolutely fucking insane. But anyway, so I posted on the Flophouse Facebook page, and I worded it poorly. Somebody had posted about artists who have a really brilliant work and that is universally lauded as brilliant and important, and then they have a work that's considered complete trash. And he had said Spiegelman with the creation of Mouse, and also Spiegelman with the creation of the Garbage Pail Kids. So a lot of people don't know that Art created, and Art doesn't really advertise that much. So it was poorly choiced. I should have said not universally despised. I should have just said despised by so many comic book creators and artists. But of course, poor words. People come at me. They want to defend Art, because he wrote this thing about the Holocaust. And some people, are saying that calling Larry Hama a fascist is not that big a deal. It's a slight. And I'm providing, and I posted a link to Howard Chaykin's page, about where he was comparing Bill Maher to Art Spiegelman and how they're performative assholes, and how Bill Maher, about how Spiegelman pilloried Jack Kirby in his life and worked to try and keep Jack Kirby off the canon as one of the great creators of comic books. So, and for those of you who don't know, calling somebody a fascist, is, I reserve that for people who are actual proponents of fascism. All right? And there's plenty of people out there that you can call fascists. And Art Spiegelman called Larry Hama a fascist for creating the G.I. Joe comic book. For those of you who don't know about Larry, he served with distinction in Vietnam. He was a tunnel rat. The character Tunnel Rat from G.I. Joe is actually based on Larry. Like I said, he's also done, incredible film work. But Larry's parents were also interned in the American concentration camps for Japanese citizens. So I have a problem with people calling Larry a fascist, and people being cool with Art Spiegeman saying Larry was a fascist, and also people being cool with saying that the G.I. Joe comic book and the G.I. Joe toy line, yeah, military propaganda, whatever. Kids play with fucking military toys, okay? And saying that something like the G.I. Joe comic book is military propaganda or fascist propaganda. Well, what kind of propaganda is the Garbage Pail Kids? Because I'm sure if you go through them, there's got to be any number of things that are probably awful and racist and sexist. I can guarantee it. And Jack Kirby. The idea that Spiegelman thought that Kirby was a hack, along with Eisner, and I have utmost respect for Eisner. There's a reason why the Eisner Awards are called that. And Eisner was brilliant. He coined the term graphic novel. And once again, Contract with God, which is arguably the first graphic novel, is also arguably the most important piece of sequential storytelling ever created. But Will didn't like Jack, called Jack a 6-page-a-day hack. Not meaning Jack was slow. 6 pages a day is an incredible amount of work to churn out. Even for just a penciler. And a lot of times Jack was penciling and inking. The other thing is that Jack also served with distinction in the U.S. Army. And Jack served in the European theater as a scout during World War II, because he was capable of drawing landmarks and maps. Jack was also a noted anti-fascist. Jack was a staunch anti-Nazi. And also, Jack fought in close combat, and killed German soldiers during World War II in France, and was of German Jewish descent and grew up on the Lower East Side of New York. So, while Art Spiegelman certainly, I'm sure dealt with bigotry growing up, he didn't deal with remotely the kind of adversity as a child that Jack did. I don't believe he encountered the kind of adversity that Larry Hama encountered as a child. I can't speak for Larry, but he grew up an Asian guy in New York, in the suburbs. Larry's still to this day. Even my mom, God bless her, I love her, but even my mom says to Larry, "So where are you from originally?" And Larry's like, "Queens." And my mom was like, "Oh, but," and I'm like, "Mom, his last name is Hama. He's Japanese. I told you that the man's, a master samurai. He's practically a samurai. He's a, master with fucking katana." I love my mom. She's such a sweetheart, but God, she's, she tries. All right. But that's the kind of shit that Larry had to deal with. All right. It's just, and I know it's Facebook, of course. But the thing is that, and it's the Flophouse fan page, and I love the Flophouse, but it's one of those things where I do encounter it, and Howard Chaykin talks about it all the time, is, cancel culture is a shitty terminology, and I don't like to use it, but there are people on the left who are, practically fucking Stalinists in their need for purity. And they're, and that's the thing, is that these are people who are performatively fighting, a lot of them. A lot of them are marginalized, women and queer people and stuff like that. But there's also this, this need to, and people are also like, oh, you gave two guys. And it's like, I didn't give two guys as an example. All right, and I said universally despised is bad, and I edited the comment to say despised by so many comic book creators. But saying Howard Chaykin and Larry Hama are two guys shows how completely ignorant of fucking comic books you are on a page that, all right, it's a podcast page, but it's a podcast page dedicated to comic books. And, it upsets me. Because, there's a lot of fucking bigotry in comics. There's a lot of sexism in comics. I did a whole hour and a half episode about Comicsgate. Okay, by the way, who, fucking have a problem with Larry Hama. Okay? But it's like, how fucking dare you say something like that? And like I said, also, Howard and Larry are... these are guys that have been working in the business for Larry longer. Well, no, I mean, almost as long as Larry, maybe longer than I've been alive. Larry might have been in comics before 1970. Yeah, I was born in December of 1970. So Larry was probably working in comics before I was born. And Howard started working in comics not long after. I'm 50. So these guys have got history in the business. And they're not even like remotely conservative. I mean, Larry still to this day says that he's an Eisenhower Republican, but an Eisenhower Republican is left of Joe Biden. Far, far fucking left of Joe Biden. In case you people haven't realized. I'm sorry, I'm saying you people, like the people that are listening to this thing, you guys aren't on my side, but it just, listen, all right? You can call fucking people out for shit, all right? You should be able to, I'm sorry, let me rephrase this. You should be able to call people that have done great things and positive works. You should be able to call out for bullshit and for being assholes if they're assholes. And you should also, inversely, you should also defend vigorously and be allowed to defend vigorously people who have created problematic works and are decent human beings. Somebody recently, I was talking about William F. Nolan and, God, I can't remember his name, the other guy who wrote Logan's Run. I'm like, listen, Logan's Run is a fucking problematic novel. It certainly is. It's a minor note in Nolan's bibliography. It's obviously his most famous work and the thing he had the most success making. But, yeah, and there's all sorts of, weird, statutory rape problems because everybody's under 21 and they're hedonists and this, that, and the other thing. But, this fucking one person is trying to compare. I said that, I'm going to paraphrase Michael Caine talking about Jaws 4. I've never read the book Logan's Run. I've seen the film. I've never read the book, and by all accounts, it's terrible. But I have met. I know people who are friends with both authors, and said that by all accounts that they're lovely people. And she says, well, John Wayne Gacy was a lovely person, and he was invited to parties, and I'm like, yeah, you're comparing John Wayne Gacy, one of the most notorious serial murderers in modern history, to two guys that wrote a book you think is icky? I mean, right? And believe me, I call people fascists. I use the term, but I also use the term appropriately. And yes, I do consider it a pejorative. And it is not a slight to call someone a fascist. You call me a fascist? Oh, man. I haven't been in a fist fight in a long time. But you know, say